if y'all will come on in, find a seat. Let's close those doors. Sandy, will you close those doors back there for me? No. All right, I know y'all are as excited as I am. Bob, would you like to get us started, please?
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and let's open in prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this church and what it means to each of us, and I know what it means to you. Lord, we just ask your blessing over this meeting. We ask that the Spirit will infuse this sanctuary and that we may all care and love for one another, that we may focus on the business at hand and always have good conduct. Lord, bless this time together. Help us all to answer the questions properly. Let there be no confusion. And we just thank you, Lord, that we're able to do this with your leadership. These things that we say in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, there's some faces I don't know, not being able to go to all the services. But good evening. I'm Dr. Bob Fossler. I'm an elder here at North Shore Church. And thanks to North Shore Church for showing up tonight to discuss this upcoming shift to our Sunday worship schedule. We are in a season of incredible growth. And to make sure that everyone has a seat and a welcoming place to connect, we're officially moving to a 3-service Sunday morning worship schedule. As our church family grows and evolves, we want to ensure that our service times best serve our current congregation and effectively reach our local community. This exciting step allows us to welcome new faces, create more space in our parking lot, and continue growing our community together. Thank you, church family, for your flexibility, excitement, and prayers during this new phase as we embrace this new chapter. In the next few minutes, we will cover the why, the vision and reasoning behind the schedule change, the timeline, exactly when the new schedule will take effect, the impact, how this affects our Sunday school, child care, and volunteer rotations, and lastly, a Q&A where we can open the floor for questions and comments, and hopefully we'll have the appropriate answers. But before I turn it over to Pastor JJ, I want to sincerely thank our church staff and pastors who have brainstormed this move and how to staff and accomplish it. We have been blessed to have such as these serving our church and community. Also, sincere thanks to the church leadership team, the CLT, for their diligent efforts in planning ahead to carry out what we believe is God's will for this church. And mostly thanks to all of you, the body of Christ, who serve in the many areas of need to keep the body functioning and growing. This is a very special church that leads in love and fellowship, and we are all blessed to be a part of it. I'm going to turn it over to our beloved Pastor JJ.
Thank you, Bob. I hope one day I have his heart. I really do. It's so sweet. Listen, what we're about to talk about tonight, you need to understand from the very beginning, this is something that we've been dealing with for over 2 years. This is something that we recognized was going to, at some point, happen for us. We've been thinking about it and praying about it, discussing it in church leadership team meetings for over the last 2 years, and all the time with the staff, it's just constantly a subject for us. And so I want you to understand this is not something that we just dreamed up one week and go, all right, we're going to go ahead with this. This has been a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of prayer put into this. Now, I want to start off with this. I want you to know the ideal situation. And the ideal situation would be this, is that we would have one worship service for the entire church to meet together. That would be the ideal situation. That's what we would love to do more than anything else. One church room that would allow for growth, but in order for us to do that, we anticipate, based upon the conversations that we've had with architects and different people who are smarter than us, that would cost us anywhere between $10 and $12 million. And so because we don't have $10 or $12 million, which if anybody does and you want to give it to us, we can stop the meeting right now and we'll break ground. But that's not where we're at. That would cost us $10 to $12 million. Now look, at some point down the road, that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to come to. And we're already working kind of in that direction and thinking along those lines so that we know exactly what we have to do and when we have to do it. But it's not right now. And so the way that we can continue to move forward in the growth that God is showing us is to move to 3 services. And I know there's all kinds of concerns with 3 services of what times and, you know, how's it going to mess up my particular Sunday morning and all these different things. But that's the ideal, is that someday we all want to be in one worship service together. Now, the other ideal situation would be educational space, is that we would have enough education space on campus to be able to have adult classes and children's classes and youth classes for everybody to meet in on Sunday morning that we could rotate through and use. But the problem with that is that space generally gets used probably once a week, and not much more than once a week, and that would cost us anywhere between $3 to $6 million to do that. So in order to get all the things that we really ideally want to have, it's going to cost us anywhere between $13 and $16 million, somewhere in there, in order to do all that stuff. Well, we just don't have that money, and I don't think it's the right thing for us to do, to go looking for that money when we've got other options that we can do in order for us to be able to continue to grow. And one of those things is obviously going to 3 services and doing home groups or small groups here at church that allow us to grow in an appropriate way. So I want you to understand exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And the first one is this. Our church is growing, just like Bob said a while ago, and Craig is going to come and talk to you about specific numbers here in just a little bit. But we're seeing growth in every part of our church. Our praise team is continuing to grow. Our worship team, and the people that lead on stage, the people that lead in the booth, all of that's continuing to grow. Our children's ministry, our youth ministry have built a solid foundation from where we were 3 or 4 years ago. They have built a solid foundation to where that growth is moving up into the high school area. Now, we've got a lot of kids in the children's area, and they're graduating up into the high school area, which is what a growing student and children's ministry looks like. And it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but the foundation is solid. We're seeing lots of young families come and join the church and visit the church, and it's happening every week. We're seeing our men's ministry called Iron Men. We're seeing spiritual change in men across the board because of what's happening in that particular Bible study. In the fall, our women's ministry called Women of the Word, that's going to mirror that men's Bible study, is going to be kicking off. And we anticipate that we'll see incredible growth, not only spiritually and discipleship-wise within our women, but in the number of women coming and being a part of that. We're seeing families from every single generation that are finding their home here at North Shore. I talked with 3 people this past Monday that had visited on Sunday morning and just said, hey, look, I want to be a part of this church. And some of them had visited before. A couple of them, this was their first time to have been at church, but they just feel like God's calling them here, and that's exciting. This past Sunday, we saw 6 baptisms. Our baptisms are continuing to take place on a regular basis. We are seeing, through our benevolence program and the way that y'all give on a monthly basis, we're helping people in our church, we're helping people in our community meet the unexpected needs that come their way. And I cannot explain to you how much of a blessing that's been to be able to not have to turn people away when they're going through something. It's really what we're supposed to be doing. The idea for a church is to be involved in its community. And at some point in time, when I've got more time to talk to you about how big I think our church should be before we plant another church, it's not even great. It's not greater than 800 people. I think at 800 people, this church should plant another church in another community not far from here. Because a church should be in its community. It should make an impact from its community. I've always said if God were to take North Shore right now and just pick it up and nobody missed it, then we're not doing our job. And if we're doing our job, then everybody ought to be devastated if God just removed our church from this community right now. And so we need to be meeting the needs of the community. We're seeing small group leaders, Sunday school leaders develop, and we're creating more spaces for every generation to grow. We're seeing that all the time. Our missions giving is at an all-time high, which is allowing us to make a bigger impact locally and around the world. Our mission trip to Sierra Leone is on track for this year. We're excited about that happening. We've got other mission trips planned for in the future. And God is trusting us with more responsibility, more opportunities, and more people each and every week. It's not just about numbers. It's what God is doing within the church, the missions, the discipleship, the serving, the giving, everything. You look at all of those factors, and that you look at, and in addition to what God's bringing in numerically, and you say, is this a healthy church or is it not a healthy church? And I think we can look at this church and say, well, this is a healthy church. Theologically, we are Bible-based. We're doing all the things that God's calling us to do. We feel like we're doing all the things and giving opportunities for those things to happen. And we're seeing God's growth take place because of that. Now, I want to give you all specific numbers. And I'm going to ask Craig if he would come up, Craig May, if you would come up and talk to them, because sometimes people hear the pastor talk about the numbers and they're like, pastor's got, religious numbers are there. They're kind of fudging the numbers a little bit. I want somebody else to give the numbers, because I want y'all to know this is not just something I've dreamed up. I asked somebody that was a lot smarter than me in numbers to come and talk about it, so I'll let you do that.
In a different audience, I might have a comment back at you, but I think I'll save that for another group. So JJ just talked about some of the many things that God's doing in the lives of our people, in the lives and in the community. We can also see the results of God's work in the attendance numbers on Sunday morning worship. And it's important to realize that unlike some churches, our goal at North Shore isn't head count. We're not here to get head count and get a bigger congregation. We're here to impact, for God to work through the church and impact the community, impact the lives of people in all the ways that JJ has talked about. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but my own view is that attendance is an outcome. And so the numbers I'm going to show you is an outcome of people wanting to be part of what God is doing. Okay? And our real goal is seeing what? Lost people saved, and saved people grow.
I love that they can.
All right, so that's it. And I think that the attendance that we're seeing is God's blessing on this church for that focus on seeing lost people saved and saved people grow. So tomorrow or tonight, whenever you talk about this meeting, my request of you is to start that conversation with talking about all the things JJ just described that God is doing. And then you can talk about the attendance numbers. So now, having said all that, it is important for us to look at attendance numbers because they give us insights that inform our decisions that we're going to have to make coming up. So, Danny, there you go. We'll start with that slide, and I'll cue you when I need to move to the next one. So the slides that you're looking at, I've got 3 of them here. So this slide is just a hindcast view. It's the attendance and Sunday morning worship since 2022, and I think the data is through the end of May. And you can see at the bottom of that slide, going left to right, is the years. So then the numbers going up and down on the left-hand side of that slide are the head count numbers. The blue line is the 9:30 worship. I see people squinting. Can y'all see that? I hope it's intentionally vague because we're not. Well, there's a truth behind that because we're not that smart to make it too much more detailed than that right now. Right, so we're looking at directional numbers, and that's why it's a little bit vague. It's the direction and the overall insights that count. So the blue line is the 9:30 attendance, and you can see that's been relatively flat since 2022. It was the larger service until 2025, I guess. And then the last 6 months, there's been a little bit of an uptick in that blue line, but it's, relatively flat. The orange line is the 11 o'clock worship service. So that's the contemporary service now. And it started out with not as many people attending as the 9:30 more traditional service. And around early 2025, something happened. And you see the slope of that orange line kick up. And gosh, it started growing. And it's continued growing at a pretty good clip since early 25. And so I've kind of asked myself, I wonder what that was that made that difference. And, there's a few things. Where's Ryan? He's down to, oh, there you are. You got hired about that time. So we could give you all the credit, but I don't think that's the answer. So sorry, Ryan.
Just kidding.
You're part of it, but you are part of it. But it was also the time when we started breaking ground, or started having visible signs of breaking ground for this children's expansion. And I think that gave us a lot of publicity and probably attracted some attention. Folks want to say, hey, something's going on in North Shore. What is it? They're hiring people. They're building, expanding the building. And it's also about the time Truth Seekers class moved to an earlier start for a while to free up space. But it's a combination of all of those things. But we've seen growth in that 11 a.m. service, and it's been consistent since early 2025. And it's now the larger service that matches everything that you knew already. So far I hadn't told you anything. And the growth is in the more contemporary services. So that's looking back in the rearview mirror, and that's easy. So the hard part is looking ahead. So click one more slide. Okay, I forgot how I built those, but so if you take, I hope y'all can see those slides. Screen's better than I can see that one. But if you take that growth of the 11 a.m. service and you assume that it continues within some range of uncertainty, and you can see that it won't be long before it reaches the capacity of the sanctuary. Now, the black lines in the text on the screen, the sanctuary capacity by design is about 300 people. There's this thing called the 80% rule that I've heard forever, I think, so it's widely accepted, a rule of thumb that says when you get to about 80% capacity, it feels crowded. And folks, instead of coming to this church, would keep going down the road, or maybe they go home, watch the ball game or something, but it starts feeling crowded enough where the growth slows. And so what this graph told me was, wow, sometime in the fall of this year, we're going to reach that 80% capacity, most likely. And if we want growth to continue and continue reaching people for all the reasons that JJ described, then we probably need to add that third service. And that's what we're doing, and that's why we're doing it when we're doing it. So there is a range of uncertainty, but it's most likely we'll see the growth trajectory continue at the same pace roughly that it has since early 25. All right, give me one more click, Danny. Okay. All right. So a lot on this slide. I'll try to explain it a step at a time. So you take the prior slide, and then the next obvious question is, okay, how far down the track might that get us? How long before not even a third service is going to be enough? And there's a lot more assumptions in this one because we're trying to look further down the track and there's more uncertainties. But it gives us some idea perhaps. So you'll see that the things that were added, if you assume that we go to that third service this fall, which we've made that decision, and then you assume that we add another more modern type service, so you get one traditional service in the blue line, and then you got the orange line, which we break into two different services, and you assume, for lack of any better knowledge, that half of the people go to the one service, half the people go to the other service. And so instead of 240 people in that 11 a.m. service, you start out with 120 or something like that in each of the two more modern services after September 13th, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's just an assumption because we don't know any better now. And then if you assume that the rate of growth of those services continue at roughly the same pace as it has, then you won't get too far down the track before you've reached the 80% capacity again. And there's a lot of assumptions in that, I know, okay? But, and there's, believe me, the one thing I know for sure on this slide is I didn't get it exactly right, okay? But what jumped off the page to me is that, wow, even if we're, within a year, we need to get started. That's what it told me. By the time that you figure out what architects you want to hire, by the time you do some design work, by the time you have whatever financial campaign you're going to have, by the time you break ground, by the time you finish, we need every bit of that time. So that was a real, that was an eye-opener for me. So hopefully that was halfway clear. JJ, back to you to talk a bit about what that might look like.
Well, so here's what it looks like, because this is what y'all have all come to hear anyway. So now that you know the why, and you know what we've been struggling with and what we've been looking at over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years or so, let's talk about how we're going to do it. And so what we know is this, is that there's nothing in the Bible that says we have to go to church for an hour. We've looked, and it doesn't say you have to go to church for. And so what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to start a worship service at 8 o'clock in the morning. Nobody likes getting here that early in the morning. I don't like getting here that early in the morning on a normal Sunday. And it's just, I'm not a morning person, and I take naps a lot. And so I just want to make sure that we are reaching every opportunity that we can. And so we do not want to start that first service before 9 o'clock. And so we're going to start, all three services are going to be 45 minutes long. And you think to yourself, well, what are we missing? If we've been going an hour, how are we going to squeeze everything down into 45 minutes? Well, Matt and I have fought, and it's going to be music that's going to get cut more. Then it's going to be a mess. Generally, I go about 20, 25, 26 minutes on average with a message. But from all the different things, and Matt and I have actually experimented with some of our services anyway, and we know that we can get everything that we normally get into a service within 45 minutes, and we don't rush anything. We don't lose anything. The idea is, and Sandy can back me up on this, we don't do a lot of announcements. We don't do a lot of fluff in our services. We're when the service starts, when that countdown hits, we're all about worship, and we're all about the word of the Lord and everything else. And so we're going to continue to do that. And so the first service is going to start at 9 o'clock, and it's going to go till 9:45, and it will be our traditional service. Now, at the same time that traditional service is going on, and I'll have Matt talk about what that's going to look like here in just a second, we're going to have our large group teaching that is going to be taking place down in the fellowship hall. And it will look exactly like the Truth Seekers class is set up now, right? If you know anything about our Truth Seekers class, we call it a restaurant-style Sunday school. And what that means is that there will be one individual who will teach for about 15, 20, 25 minutes total, probably closer to 15. And then everybody else will be at tables. Now, all of those tables are potential small groups, what we call open small groups. And those open small groups are open to anybody that comes and sits down there. That means that anybody that comes on a Sunday morning, if they're looking for a small group to get plugged into, we can send any adult of any generation down into the fellowship hall, and every single table that is there is a small group for them to sit at. And they may sit at one table one week and go, well, I didn't like that group at all. And they may move to a different group the next week, and that's perfectly fine. But at some point, that what happens is, and the Truth Seekers can back me up on this, what happens is they eventually meld into a small group. They eventually become a group that doesn't want to get away from each other. They like each other. They like to talk with one another. They trust each other. And so at some point, if that small group on a Sunday morning decides it wants to move off campus and become a home group, well, then they can do that at any point in time and become a home group. Now, why would we do that? Well, because we don't have educational space. And we don't want to spend $3 to $6 million to build educational space that's going to get used once a week when we've got homes that we can send people to that are already built and people are willing to use them. So that, to me, is being a good steward of the funds and the money that God has given us, right? Why spend money on something that we don't absolutely have to have when we can do it a different way? And so every one of those small groups down on a Sunday morning has the ability to stay an open small group down there on Sunday morning and continue to do the things that they want to do. Or if a group gets close enough and they decide that they want to take their home group to a small group to a home, then they can move that off campus and they can go to a home at any point in time that they want to. What that allows is for people to constantly be going down there, and we always have room and we always have a place for somebody to go and get plugged in. And if you know me at all, you know that I think that's the most important thing that any single person can do at this church, is they can get involved in the small groups. And so we want that to happen. During that same hour, from 9 to 9:45, there will be a children's child care taking place down in the children's area. And Tara will be doing her normal stuff with the kids during that point in time. Now, Matt, talk to them a little bit about what that first service will look like.
The traditional service will be like it is now. We'll still have our choir. We'll still sing the timeless hymns. Joyce will still be playing the piano. Nothing will really change.
Okay.
Y'all just remember to clap on all the next ones, okay?
So after that service is over, we will have a 30-minute pastime. And the reason for that passage of time is so that we can get people out of here and down to their Sunday school class where they're going next, or into the parking lot and into the car so they can get out of here, so the next group of people can get in. We had looked and toyed around with doing 15 minutes in between each services, but it just doesn't allow enough time for that to happen, and that would be really tricky. And since we're already doing 45-minute services anyway, we're really kind of pushing time as it was. And so we went ahead and built in 30 minutes in between each service. And so that second service is going to start at 10:15, and it will go to 11 o'clock. Now, everything that was happening, that's when truth seekers will meet during that 10:15 hour. And it's designed already the way that we've talked about, which has been happening ever since Kit stepped down as the leader of that class. That's the way we designed it then, and it has worked out, I would think you would say, just kind of what we've talked about. And so it's allowed for a lot of growth to happen in that way, and we're going to continue to do that with the adults in that hour. Joyce's class will meet in room 107 during that hour. And then our children's Sunday school will take place in the children's area, and our youth ministry, whether it be junior high or high school, we'll let Matt make that decision as we get closer. They'll meet in the youth area during that particular time. That service will be from 10:15 to 11 o'clock, and it will be acoustic driven. Matt, what's acoustic driven?
Well, when we went to traditional music and then we went to the modern, what I always heard was, well, I want both. Now, I don't want to box myself in and say we're going to call it a blended service, but what I am envisioning is still a praise team. I was telling the choir today, maybe even a praise choir, because we're always having more and more people want to come be a part of something, but maybe they don't want to come to the rehearsals and stuff. It'll be acoustic. It'll be acoustic guitar. There won't be an electric guitar. There won't be the loud drums. But we might do hymns and we might do some choruses, and we'll kind of give you a taste of both. But it's all going to do this, because worship is our response to God for who he is and what he's done. And all three services are going to have that.
Yeah. Now, the sound level in our 9:30 service now and our sound level in the 11 o'clock service now feel completely different, right? And there are some people who walk out of the 11 o'clock service like, it's too loud for me.
Yeah.
And this acoustic driven will be designed to kind of be in the middle of those two. So that if you don't want the really loud music, but you'd like some blended stuff, yep, that's kind of where it's going to be. And that's going to be important for y'all in just a second. Now, the third service will start at 11:30, and it will go to 12:15. Now, let's say, football starts off at 12. You're fine. If I can do it, I promise you, you can do it. Everything from 11:30 to 12:15 will still be the same. Adult small group connections down in the fellowship hall. Ryan is working on the teachers for all of that right now. Open small groups, ability to move those small groups off campus, continuous spots for people to come in and connect with a group for them to continue to grow. Children's church would be happening down in the children's area, youth ministry down in the youth area, and all the same. This will be the modern service. So
this will be the modern service. This will be just like what we have now in our 11 o'clock service, where the energy level and the sound level is a little bit higher than maybe our traditional service, but we really won't change this service at all.
Yeah. So here's the win. Here's the win, first of all, for new people. What it does is it creates multiple entry points into the life of the church for anybody that's new. It creates multiple entry points into the discipleship area down in the fellowship hall for our kiddos and our youth down that way. It creates different entry points as far as different services into worship and praise because people are looking for different things. It reduces crowd anxiety. This past Sunday morning, when we had the 6 baptisms going on here, what was our head count in the second service? 234. 234 people. We were right up against that 80% rule. And if you've been in here for any of those things, you know that even at 235 or whatever, it felt like we were completely full. It was a very, very full service. Now, it's awesome. We love it. But it reduces crowd anxiety for the first-time visitors because people walk in and they don't find a place to sit. Or they think, well, I've got to walk all the way up to the front in order to find some place. I'm just not doing it. And so they'll turn right back around. And if the parking lot's full, they won't even stop to park. They'll just go find someplace else. So it expands parking availability. It gives people a worship style that truly connects. And it assures that our children are always in the caring hands of the people that will take care of them. So that's the win for new people. The win for our church is that it's discipleship options for every single generation. There is not one generation that we have not prayed specifically about and thought specifically about as we have moved toward this, because it is every generation of this church that makes it run. It's not one that makes it run more than the other. And so we thought we're not going to leave somebody behind in order to reach a different crowd. That's just not who we're going to be. I was asked at one point, hey, JJ, why don't we just get rid of the traditional service? I said, I'm not doing that, because we have a whole group of people who are a foundation of our church that love that service. We're not abandoning that at all. And so that's just not going to happen. So the win for our church is that smaller, more connected worship services. I was asked the question last night at the deacons meeting, JJ, with 3 services, right now with 2, I don't know everybody. How with 3 services are we going to get to know everybody? And I said, well, as a staff and as a church, we're going to have to make a concerted effort to have more large group gatherings on Sunday mornings, like our family days that we were having last year, where we're just getting everybody together at once. But the problem is, and Matt and I were talking about it earlier today, if we get all the church together at once, we don't have enough room in the fellowship hall to get everybody together, and we don't have enough room in here to get everybody together to do what we want to do. So we're really at a tough spot, and it's a great spot to be in. Like, I want this problem all the time. I really do. But we'll figure out how to get it done. It gives us a front row seat to what I believe is a historic moment in the life of this church and in this community. And it opens up new volunteer opportunities for everybody to serve, which is the absolute reason that we need to get into this last part. And this is, to me, this is the most important part of the night, because you've got your information, you know what the services are going to look like, you know what the times are going to be. We can't pull off any of these things by ourselves. We have to, most statistics, and Tom, back me up on this if you would, most statistics say that every church has about 5% of the people that do 90% of the work, right? And so what I want us to do as a church is to begin to look at this opportunity as kind of a new jump in our service of church members, and say, you know what, every person needs to find their place to serve. And so in order to do that, we got to have opportunities for you to serve. And so I want to show you a lot of the different places where we're going to need people to jump in and say, I will be a part of the church in this particular capacity. You might not have ever done anything else before. I'm asking you, the church staff is asking you, the church leadership team is asking you, if you would jump in and do one of these things. So let's look at some of the different ways that you can volunteer to help us make this successful. Well, first of all, in worship, we're going to need ushers and greeters. We're going to need people who are going to be meeting people at the door. The thing that's said about this church all the time is that this is the most friendly church that anybody's ever been to, and I never want that to change. I want people to have to run the gauntlet of shaking hands and getting hugs when they walk in these doors. And I don't care if you're introverted and you don't like it, that's what we're going to do, right? I want that to be the case. I want people to walk in, and if they don't find a place to sit, that there's somebody that will walk down who's more comfortable, that will walk down the middle of the aisle and find 2 spots and wave somebody down and go, I've got 2 for you right here, so that they don't have to worry about trying to figure it out. We need more choir people. We need praise team people that can help Matt fill up this choir loft and to do the things that will need to be done there. We'll need people to run the audio visual stuff upstairs. There's a whole nother office behind there that does the online services. We're seeing where are all the different places around the world that we're getting picked up on?
Canada, China, anywhere, Afghanistan. I used to think they were just bots, and then people have started kind of responding to the worship services. And so we're seeing our online presence is becoming more and more prevalent, and we put a lot into that.
Yeah. We need a baptistry team. Every time that we've got somebody that's getting baptized, we need somebody to meet them in the front foyer, to walk into the changing rooms over here and get them upstairs and get them prepped and ready to go for the baptistry. We need what's called a resource restocking team. People who will walk through the church between services and pick up the bulletins that were left behind and restock the envelopes if they need to be restocked in between each of those services. We need that to happen during our worship services. For adult small groups, we need Ryan needs adult small group connections directors, people who will make sure that people are getting connected into a small group and feeling comfortable, and that we know when somebody's here and when they're not here, and they'll reach out to them. Large group teachers to run those classes, and table leaders, people that will sit at the table and go, look, I'm not trained, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I got the questions in front of me, I can read a question off a piece of paper and not be afraid to lead a small group discussion at your table. We need people to step in and to do those types of things. We need people in our children's ministry, in our youth ministry, ministry. We need directors, we need teachers, we need helpers, we need runners. You know what a runner is? It means when Tara looks at you and goes, I need you to go get that. You run and you go get that, right? Because we have just, with all the kids that we have down there on a Wednesday night and on Sunday morning, she needs as much help as she can get. And sometimes you don't have to mess with the kids at all. You just need to be helping Tara, one of the adults, have all the stuff that they need, or to watch a kid that's running and you run after them and go get them. And so there's a lot of that stuff that happens. Welcome and support. We need people at the welcome desk out there. We need sheepdogs that help keep us protected when we're here for all three services. We need people to help with our medical team so that Julie Hart and Ted can have people that they can count on in each of the services to, if something goes wrong, if somebody goes down, that they're right there for us. And then if we get all these spots filled, I'm going to go back and talk to Pat and see if we can get donuts reinstated. But he's the one that's keeping us from doing it, just so y'all know. I'm kidding, Pat. Where's Pat? He probably left.
Right back. He just left.
He just quit church.
Yeah.
Anyway. No, that was my call. Anyway, and then service balance. Here's the key factor to all of this. All three services, in my heart, need to be balanced. When we first started two services back in October of 22, we started and probably had about 120, 130 in the 9:30 service. And then we would come into the second service, and there were some days when we would have 45, 50 people in that service. And Matt would look at me and go, are we seriously doing this? I'm like, yep, all 45, 50 people about to get preached and praised to, all right? And that has grown. And we knew we were doing the right thing, and we know we're doing the right thing here. But I'll say this, it's easier when we can have a balance of all of our people through all three services. Because what that does is that people like to be around a crowd, but they don't like to be around a big crowd. Does that make sense? And so they want to go in someplace and they want to look at it and go, I feel comfortable here. I know some people here, but it's not so crowded that it's overwhelming to them. And so what I'm asking for all of you to think about, and at the end of June, or end of July and beginning of August, what I'm going to ask is that all the church people will make a decision and let us know what that decision is as to which service that you plan to attend. You say, JJ, I've always been a contemporary guy. I've always kind of gone to the contemporary music. But I'm willing to go to the acoustic-driven service, the middle service, in order to make it balance out a little bit. And if we would treat it like we would treat like a church plant for a year and say, I'm willing to treat this as my mission opportunity for 1 year so that we can balance these services out so that we can see them become as successful as possible. You say, JJ, I've always been a traditional person. I always like the hymns and I like the other stuff. Well, that's why we've got the acoustic-driven service, because you might not want to do modern. You just refuse to do modern, but you'll do something in between just so that we can see a balance taking place. And so our prayer is that over the course of the next month and a half, 2 months, that you will pray about where God would lead you as far as which service you will go to. And you will help us as we started getting people signed up for it so that they're as balanced as possible so that when people walk in, they think, well, this is good. The atmosphere is good. It's not overwhelming. It's not too big. It's not too small. And that gives us growth in every single service, a possibility of growth in every single service, right? It's about 110, 115 people in each service will fit everybody right now. And that's great because we can fit 300 people in each room. Now, 300's tough, right? Y'all remember the Christmas Eve service, right? We don't want that situation again. But we want the opportunity for people to walk in and go, man, this is it. This feels right. And so some of you might just, if you would just pray about what service will God lead me to so that we can be as balanced as possible across all three services so that we can see growth and excitement in every single one of those services. Does that make sense for everybody? And so at the end of this service, as soon as we get done with the question and answer portion of this time, then there's gonna be sign-up sheets out there for you to do. And if one of the volunteer opportunities that we talked about tonight kind of piques your interest, there will be people out behind those clipboards that will help you kind of walk you through some of the different things that you can do. And they will be at every single one of our vision nights. And so you might not decide something tonight, but if you could start telling us tonight, look, I will jump in and I will work with children. I will work with the audio visual stuff upstairs. I'll be a part of choir. I mean, I've been thinking about being a part of choir already, and Matt keeps telling me no. But if you just go to it and say, sign up for it, and then let us start getting you plugged in and getting you all the information that you need, you will be a huge blessing to us. Does that make sense? Does that help everybody? Everybody kind of understand the why and all this stuff? With that being said, I'm going to open it up for questions.